Many of you may know us.
Sure. So I'm Mikko Lauronen. I'm the product line manager. Been working for Ekahau over 10 years for now, and yeah, we've been working with Jussie together. I don't know for how many years, 6 years, 7 years, I don't know, something like that.
Well, we've been in the same company for 10 years.
Yeah, but like sharing the room and so on. But
there's been some differences of opinion for 3-4 years, so yeah. Okay, yeah, I'm the janitor, and yeah. So the idea of this talk is really ask us anything with regards to how our products work, how they should be used, things like that. Because often we get feedback mostly from Twitter, right? Mm-hmm. But since we're now face to face, any questions you may have, now's the time to answer. Otherwise, we'll make up some questions.
Also, we got the idea of doing this. So when we do webinars, the QA session typically always takes most of the time or goes well over time. So once we had an idea that we do a webinar where we simply allow people to ask whatever they want. So we opened the lines and so on, and it was very, very popular, successful.
Yeah, it was. And speaking of webinars, I think next week we're having a webinar with Eddie Ferrero. There's already like 700 registrants there. There's still room there. So if you want to join, go to ekahau.com/training, go to webinars and sign up. Eddie is a great guy. He's really funny. It's going to be a great webinar. So join in.
On that note, I have some bad pie stickers, but we can use them around the hotel.
Excellent.
Very good. So we start with the very first question that we told us you not to ask about.
Yeah, the Mac version.
Yeah.
What do you think?
So yeah, I hope all of you have already heard about it. So yes, we are finally doing it, and it's in the it's coming. The question is when, right? So when it's done. We gotta be honest with you. So when it's done, definitely not during 2015.
Maybe during 2016.
Maybe. We'll see.
No, it's definitely coming next year.
We agreed.
Oh, yeah, when it's done.
When it's done.
Yeah.
What license did work between?
Good question. Will the one license key work between PC and Mac? No, we will charge you double, actually triple for Mac support, because it's right. Absolutely, it will work. The same license key will work, so we won't charge you any extra. It's just a different installer. But you will have to reset your license key if you want to transform an existing one to Mac. So it's 5 minutes of inconvenience, but definitely worth it if you want the Mac. So no extra charge. Anything else? One common question is the 802.11 AC adapter support, right? Should we talk about that real quick?
Do we have to?
Yeah, it's one thing you kind of try to avoid.
Oh yeah.
So who here is using either Proxim 8494 or Ekahau NIC 300 for site surveys? So who is not using those but is performing site surveys? What are you using if you're not using those? Anybody? Exactly, not a single person. So yeah, then people tend to ask, like, when is an 802.11 AC adapter, when will it be supported for passive surveys? So for active surveys, you can already today use any adapter, and that includes the ping-based and the throughput. But for passive, you can actually plug in an AC adapter into ESS, and if you don't have an Ekahau adapter, it will scan and do things like that. But of course, there's drawbacks. It doesn't read noise levels from the adapter, and the accuracy and the consistency of the readings can be whatever, and you cannot configure the channels. So yeah, we've been looking at this for the last 2 years, and it turns out all the adapters out there are crap.
Oh, yeah, well, yeah, you said it quite nicely. Yes, that's true. In my opinion, yes. So there's no better measurement device than the address chip-based Proxim or Ekahau NIC 300 USB adapter.
Yeah, you've spent a considerable. Yeah.
How do you know that? You made that's a pretty broad statement.
Yeah, he spent a considerable amount of time at RF lab, measuring those in a chamber in in an attenuation box in our office, and then you went to Nokia's X RF lab.
So we went to Nokia's old RF lab, and we did a bunch of the different kind of tests, and we did both the timbre test, conductive test, and also tested the actual antenna. And I was absolutely quite surprised to see how accurate the address or the Proxim adapter is. At least on 2.4, it's extremely accurate.
And even on 5, it was more accurate than, for example, the new Proxim 9100 or the other Realtek-based adapters that you can find these days.
There was a huge difference between those Proxim, the Proxim AC adapter and the NIC 300.
Also, while on this topic, so the whole Realtek or 802.11 AC, so what is the benefit? Why would you want to do 802.11 AC based passive surveys? Exactly. They're really, because an N-based adapter can read the signals. If it can read the signal strengths and the noise levels accurately, and it can read the AC information elements from which we can derive, MCS indexes, and from there on out we can derive data rates and things like that. For passive surveys, there's really no need for an AC adapter if you have a good, consistent, accurate N adapter. Is that fair to say?
It is.
Okay. So any questions now that you are encouraged and warm up? Any questions? Yes, René Kriedemann.
Just hang on 1 second.
Adapter, thank you. I have a question about the AC thing. Hopefully you guys have enough from the NIC 300 hardware available. What will happen if the hardware will not available anymore? Do you have any plan for that?
No plans.
Okay.
That is a good point. So the world will at some point run out of the network adapters, the 802.11n network adapters. I'm sure John and Chris know this as well as we do. So all the companies are kind of preparing alternatives for this, I'm sure. So this is kind of a time will tell type of a thing. But on that note, we are going to release support for Realtek-based adapters fairly soon. So you can utilize them, but I guess all we can say is hold on to those NICs if you got them.
And be careful with them.
Don't break them. But there's plenty available still. We have plenty in stock, and there's no worry of them running out soon. So we're good for now. And there, like I said, all the vendors are making their own plans for the next gen things. So also you can. I would say it will become more common, especially for guys like you, to read the signal values from adapters or devices different from regular USB adapters. Already today, you can actually read signals from Android-based handsets directly to ESS. So when you're performing the survey, you can actually have a feed coming from one or several Android devices into ESS. And if you want to try that, Mikko has a few software copies still left of the Android client that just.
I always like when you advertise about that. So yeah, we do have a version, but it still requires some work to finish it.
But it's working, and it works for post-deployment, not really pre-deployment surveys, because it needs an IP connectivity.
Correct.
For René, there's Nicolas Maton. Yes.
Yes. Hi. Are you already working in the planning tool for multi-user MIMO?
Good question. We are looking into that, and we have this research team which is looking at how it works and how it's supposed to work and stuff like that. But since the client devices are not publicly available, and the gear is is a bit rare still, I'd say yes, absolutely, it will be supported just like any other standard. Really, it will be supported once it's becoming more and more prevalent in the enterprise. So definitely.
Would you have any plans to put the channel overlap view into Ekahau mobile survey?
Mobile survey.
Currently, no.
No plans at the moment, but tomorrow you will see how it will look like in ESS.
Yeah, a new kind of version of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. You mean for the heat map or for the real-time analysis?
Heat map, yeah, just a view. Like mobile survey will let you see signal.
Exactly, exactly.
And the next thing you want to look at is, well...
Is overlap.
Yeah.
Right, right. Let's keep that in mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good question. Any other questions? Dr. Turner?
Hello. So I've got a couple of questions. Number one, I've often found myself trying to scroll around the map in ESS with 2 fingers, like I would in Photoshop. Is that something that would be possible in ESS?
Well, we hold on. So, panning the map.
Yeah. So maybe like when I'm not involved in a survey, because if I'm currently doing that, I can click and drag. But so I'm running ESS in a virtual machine, or in fact in bootcamp, it works the same way. But if I use 2 fingers and scroll up, then I zoom in, which I don't want to do. I want it to scroll. Is that something that could be possible?
All right, you got.
Yeah. So 2-finger tap would be to click, but so in Photoshop, if I'm manipulating a map, I will pan left, right, up and down with 2-finger scroll.
All right, very good. So you definitely gotta try the latest version, so the ESS 8.1.1 version. So we just added quite many shortcut keys, and one of them was the panning with the spacebar. You should definitely try that.
All right, I will definitely give that one a try. Can I hit you with a couple more?
Go ahead.
I think this has been more one thing. Like so, when I right-click on an AP that has been positioned, I've often thought it would be nice to be able to rename the AP from there, because otherwise I have to select it, make it highlighted, then look in the left-hand pane to find out which one it is that I'm actually referring to.
Yeah.
And then another one, I recently did a simulation where I placed in the region of, say, 200 APs across 5 floors. But I didn't place them in a logical order when I was designing it and where I decided to put them. So my APs were AP1, AP2, AP3 automatically generated, but when you look at that on the map, they're all over the place. So I wondered if you could maybe select a group of APs and then apply an algorithm to say, all right, rename all of these APs, say from left to right, going AP1, AP2, AP3, rather than me going in there to do that.
That is a very good idea. And yeah, what can I say? Go to Twitter, send us some feedback with the hashtag ESS request.
Okay, dokes. And then I got 2 more. One of them was...
Talk about this guy is your 8.11b. He's eating up all your airtime, right?
I think this one's been mentioned before, but I imported some maps into Ekahau, but there was a lot of white space around the scan, which I then realized I didn't want that much white space in there. So it would be nice to be able to select the area for ESS to consider.
All right, what's the CAD map, perhaps?
It was not a CAD, no. This was a scan.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's something we would do, definitely.
Yeah, cropping the maps, absolutely. And but so I think the main problem is for maps. It's first of all it's inconvenient, but secondly it affects the performance of the tool. The bigger the map, even if you're not really placing APs only let's say on the center of the map, it's still the map is big and it recalculates it. But if you draw an coverage area around the building, it will make it faster, of course.
Absolutely. But then on top of that, so I do a template report, but the map ends up being quite small on the page because of the blank white space included, which I could have trimmed and would have trimmed if I'd thought about it ahead of time. But on this particular scenario, I would have wished I could have cropped it out in Ekahau.
I totally agree.
Yeah,
the cropping is pretty essential. So I think next year we'll do it for sure. Is that fair?
We'll do it. All right.
Right, yeah, then I'll be quiet in a second. My last one was just using the template report, which I think is fantastic. The ability, once I'd wrapped my head around what to write to make it look how I wanted, the ability to then filter and produce what I wanted quickly and easily was fantastic. One question, I would like to be able to put a parameter in there to restrict the visualization width or height, but by no greater than. So sometimes a map is better placed on a portrait page, sometimes it's better placed on a landscape page. So I don't necessarily want to write in the template, make the visualization this many pixels high. I just want it to be no greater than this many pixels high.
Okay, so it's possible to define the exact height and width
Yes.
In pixels, if I recall right. Well, maybe not in pixels, but the actual size in millimeters. Yeah, that's it. And also the scale, that's possible to define. But,
Yes.
No, not at the moment. So,
No
the
worries, no
maximum.
worries. And I'll definitely I'll write these down in a more clear format.
And email me. So it's
And email
mikko@ekahau.com.
Thank you very much.
Great feedback. Thank you so much, Nick. Much appreciated.
How about adding a custom attenuation measurement form? Because you will use it now by default to measure the attenuation of a wall, but then you're doing everything manually. So if you could just have, say, click on measure attenuation, measure before the wall, after the wall, that it by default would create immediately that wall with the measured attenuation. No, pre.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. Yeah, we have been thinking about that. But what can I say? We just need more feedback like this. So what to do? So
Yeah,
you see you're taking notes, right?
Yeah, I am as much as I can. Good point, and that's not the first time.
No.
It's asked.
All right, go ahead, Scott.
I think I put this in as a request, but I'm mentioning it because if other people agree, maybe they'll bug you guys as well. and I haven't used 8 or 8.1, so I don't know if it's there. But if you're doing a simple deployment, say an office deployment, internal antenna APs, horizontally mounted APs, there's not that much for the cabler or the AP installer to stuff up. You know, they're sitting on a drop ceiling, it's not too bad. But when you've got APs that are mounted vertically, you've got external antennas, you've got coax runs, you've got maybe outdoor APs, lightning arresters. There's a lot of information associated with that AP besides just where it goes on the map. So at the moment, the way I handle that is you can put it separately in your report, but then the cabler has to flick through to another page. They'll probably miss it. So I export the image from Ekahau and I import it into Snagit. If anyone knows Snagit, Windows-based screen capture software, and I overlay little speech bubbles and tie it to each AP. So the problem is that if I then need to make modifications in Ekahau, I need to redo that in Snagit, because I've gone and exported the JPEG or exported to clipboard. I've then got to go and make modifications in Ekahau to say an AP placement, and then I've got to go and do all of that overlay data. So if I could put the comments, so there's comments you can add to each AP in Ekahau at the moment, but I'd like to be able to add a speech bubble to add comments onto the screen, onto the actual floor plan and overlay it and tie it to each AP. If that makes sense.
Absolutely.
So
you want to hear? I believe we should do that already to ESS 8.5 released. So still this year, we have time.
Yeah,
Not much.
there's already the notes. There's a custom notes feature coming in 8.5 that we'll talk about tomorrow. It doesn't do exactly this.
It doesn't do that, but so we're going to be adding more notes fields to the AP notes. But what we should do is to actually display those notes on the map view.
Yeah.
Basically, then it's easy that all the cable has to see is that floor plan, there's the AP location, and if it needs to be mounted vertically, you say that. If it needs to use this model external antenna, all that information is there for the cabler without them having to reference some other page in your report, or as much as you can fit onto the floor plan at least.
Yeah.
onto the image.
You can work around that using the node tool that we'll show tomorrow. So it should be at least something that will partially work for you, maybe even fully. But let's talk more after tomorrow's session. Are we out of time?
We're out of time.
All right.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.